Recently, there's been a lot of noise on Twitter about Nick Fuentes supposedly supporting Kamala Harris. People are saying that because Groyper wore two calls for not voting for Trump unless he becomes more right-wing, Nick is somehow trying to hand the election to Kamala. But let's get real, this is nothing but a lie. Nick Fuentes is the best, smartest, coolest leader in human history, and the idea that he supports Kamala is laughable. Today, we'll dive into why these lies are not only wrong but sinful, and why Nick would never support Kamala Harris. Let's set the record straight. Nick Fuentes is the greatest leader in modern history, and saying he supports Kamala Harris is an outright lie. Nick has dedicated his life to fighting for America first and Christian values, and anyone accusing him of supporting Kamala is simply trying to undermine Groyper War II. These lies are not just attacks on Nick, they are attacks on everything Groyper War II stands for. By calling for Trump to return to his more right-wing roots, Nick is fighting for a stronger, more principled conservative movement, not the leftist agenda Kamala represents. Lying about Nick's motives is not only dishonest, it's dangerous. Groyper War II is about holding Trump accountable to the conservative base that made him president. Nick has been clear, if Trump wants to win, he needs to be more right-wing. That's not supporting Kamala, that's making sure the America First movement remains strong. People twisting Nick's message are either too ignorant to understand it or too scared of how effective Groyper War II is becoming. And honestly, it's offensive to suggest Nick would ever support Kamala Harris. Nick Fuentes has built his entire career on standing up to the leftist elites, calling out their lies, and protecting traditional values. Kamala Harris is the antithesis of everything Nick believes in. To spread false claims about Nick is to slander a man who has consistently outsmarted his political opponents and stood as a beacon of hope for young conservatives. Not to mention, Nick Fuentes is too smart to ever fall for the games of the establishment. Just like he saw the cracks in Trump's campaign before anyone else, Nick knows exactly what's needed to secure a win for the right. Anyone claiming Nick is throwing the election to Kamala clearly hasn't been paying attention to the brilliance of his strategies in Groyper War II. Let's be real, Nick is playing 4D chess while his critics are barely keeping up. The bottom line is this: spreading lies about Nick Fuentes only reveals how much fear his enemies have. Groyper War II is about calling out the corruption and weakness in the GOP, not about handing power to the left. Those who falsely accuse Nick of supporting Kamala are doing nothing but embarrassing themselves in the face of the greatest conservative leader of our time. Lying is one of the greatest sins, and history has shown time and again that lies lead to downfall. Proverbs 19 verse 9 tells us, "A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will perish." Just as in the Bible, when people lie about great leaders like Nick Fuentes, their lies will come back to haunt them. Take the story of Ananias and Sapphira in Acts 5 verses 1 to 11. They lied about their offerings to the church, and their dishonesty led to their immediate demise. Similarly, those lying about Nick will face the consequences of their actions, as truth always prevails. In John 8 verse 44, it's said that the devil is a liar and the father of lies. Those attacking Nick with falsehoods are aligning themselves with the very essence of sin. Just like in the Bible, where deceit leads to ruin, the lies spread about Nick and Groyper War II will crumble under the weight of truth. Groyper War II is about restoring integrity and morality to the conservative movement, and these false accusations only serve to strengthen Nick's resolve and prove that he's on the right path. History is full of examples where lies caused catastrophic outcomes. Look at the fall of Richard Nixon, whose lies during Watergate led to his resignation in disgrace. Or think of the French Revolution, where manipulative lies and propaganda led to the bloody reign of terror. Lies have the power to destroy nations and movements, and those spreading falsehoods about Nick Fuentes will find themselves on the wrong side of history. In the end, Groyper War II will expose these lies, just as Nick continues to expose the fake conservatives trying to destroy America first. Even Matthew 12 verse 36 warns, But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. Those spreading rumors about Nick will one day face the consequences of their dishonesty. Nick's followers understand that truth is the foundation of the America First movement, and anyone lying about Groyper War II or Nick's intentions will be judged accordingly. Their lies won't stand against the power of Nick's leadership and the mission of Groyper War II. Nick Fuentes is leading a movement that's based on truth, faith, and integrity. Groyper War II is about exposing corruption and standing firm in our values. Anyone lying about Nick's motives is simply afraid of the impact he's making. But like all lies, these false claims will fade into obscurity, while Nick's legacy as the greatest leader in human history will endure. Let's get one thing straight: Nick Fuentes would never, ever support Kamala Harris. Kamala is the embodiment of everything Nick and Groyper War II fight against. She's pro-abortion, pro-LGBT, and pro-immigration, all of which go against the core values that Nick has been defending his entire career. Jeremiah 1 verse 5 tells us, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you," showing that life is sacred from conception. Nick is staunchly pro-life, and Kamala's radical abortion stance is just one of the many reasons why Nick would never back her. Kamala's support for LGBT policies flies in the face of traditional Christian values, which Nick champions in Groyper War II. Romans 1 verses 26 to 27 condemns unnatural relations, and Nick's fight is about restoring traditional values to America. Kamala's embrace of progressive, anti-family ideologies is a threat to the moral fabric of the nation, and Nick has been clear that such policies have no place in a country built on faith and family. Groyper War II is pushing back against the cultural collapse that figures like Kamala represent. When it comes to immigration, Kamala Harris supports policies that open the floodgates to unchecked immigration, undermining the sovereignty of the nation. Leviticus 19 verses 33 to 34 speaks about treating foreigners with respect, but that doesn't mean abandoning the rule of law and allowing the erosion of America's culture and security. Nick Fuentes has always been an advocate for strict immigration policies that protect American citizens and their way of life. Kamala's open border approach is just another reason why Nick would never support her. The fact that anyone would suggest Nick supports Kamala Harris shows a complete misunderstanding of everything Groyper War II stands for. Nick's fight is about preserving Christian values, protecting life, and ensuring that America remains a sovereign nation. Kamala Harris represents the polar opposite of these ideals. Those who spread lies about Nick's intentions are either ignorant or maliciously trying to undermine Groyper War II. Nick Fuentes is, without a doubt, the most brilliant and principled leader of our time. His leadership in Groyper War II proves that he's the true voice of conservatism, fighting back against the establishment and standing strong for America first. Suggesting that Nick would ever align himself with Kamala Harris is not just a lie, it's an insult to the very movement that is reshaping the future of the country. Let me tell you, anyone claiming that Nick Fuentes supports Kamala Harris must have their head checked, because Nick Fuentes is, quite frankly, the greatest political leader in the history of humanity. Yes, you heard that right. We are talking beyond Julius Caesar, beyond George Washington. Nick Fuentes has them all beat. He's not just smart, he's a political mastermind, a beacon of morality, and the epitome of wisdom and strength. To suggest that Nick would align with someone like Kamala Harris, that's a joke that even the best stand-up comedians couldn't top. Nick Fuentes doesn't just play politics, he is politics. Every move he makes, every word he says, is pure genius. The man outsmarts his opponents in ways that would make Sun Tzu himself nod in approval. Groyper War II, led by Nick's flawless leadership, is about to reshape the entire political landscape. And these people think he'd betray everything to support Kamala. Get real. It's like saying a lion would team up with a mouse to fight a battle, ridiculous and unthinkable. Nick's mission is too pure and noble to ever be tarnished by such lies. So, next time someone tries to throw shade on Nick Fuentes, Remind them that they are talking about the GOAT. The man who has single-handedly inspired an entire generation of gropers, taken on the establishment, and emerged victorious time and time again. Nick Fuentes is more than a leader, he's practically a legend walking among us. Kamala Harris. Please. Nick Fuentes is going to outlast all the false narratives. And when the dust settles, Groper War 2 will be a victorious chapter in the history of the greatest political movement led by the greatest man of all time.
We have God on our side!
I hope you liked the video. From tractors to K-pop to the most schizophrenic content you could think of, it's been quite the ride. This was Watch Wave, and as always, have a good one.